Reze has mercilessly massacred an entire city, but the entire internet is madly in love with her. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why? What makes Reze such a special character? How does she manage to be a villain who makes you root for her? Reze is one of the most complex villains I've seen in a long time, and she's undoubtedly one of the best villains around today. Reze isn't the first villain we've grown fond of. There are many others who share that sentiment. We only have to look at the Joker, or even Hans Landa. Yes, I'm comparing her to possibly the best written villain in modern cinema. The thing is, when Fujimoto wrote the character of Reze, he did something very different. He created a villain who didn't provoke fear, but rather tenderness. Hans Landa's greatness lies in two crucial factors that make him one of the best villains in history. The first is the dialogue by Tarantino, possibly the director with the best dialogue in cinema. Tarantino manages to create tension with random conversations.
Veuillez m'excuser, j'ai oublié de commander la crème. Un instant. Attendez la crème.
The second factor is Christopher Waltz's performance. This is so crucial that Tarantino thought he would never be able to make Inglourious Basterds because he thought no one would be able to play Landa until Christopher Waltz came along.
I was literally starting to think that maybe I wrote a part that was unplayable. And it was one morning, I called the producers. I said, guys, I'm not trying to freak everybody out, but I don't know if we're gonna find Landa. Unless we find the perfect Landa, I'd rather not make this movie. And that day, Christoph walked in the room. He literally gave me my movie back.
The fact is that Landa is a good villain because he manages to convey tension with great precision. But what about Reze? The strength of Reze's character does not lie so much in the feeling of tension she conveys, but in her influence on the protagonist, the story, and the audience. Reze is not a scary villain. She is a villain who corrupts all the values of the character and the viewer. She also redefines Makima, making her a symbol of the power of the Japanese state. And from the Reze Arc onwards, many fans began to hate Makima. Okay, but then how does she do it? How does she manage to have such a big impact on the characters, and above all, on the audience? Let's start with who Reze is. Reze is a girl who was trained by the Russian state to be basically a weapon. Here comes the first distinction from other villains. Reze is a person who had her childhood stolen from her, or rather, her entire life. Underneath the training is a stolen teenager who tastes, for the first time, the flavor of a normal life.
You're joking. Being the country mouse is so much better. A peaceful life is where it's at.
Studying, laughing, getting wet in the rain without thinking about escape routes. With Denji, she doesn't act all the time. There are genuine impulses, curiosity, tenderness, the desire to stay. The drama is that these impulses come too late to a mind already wired for the mission. So, answering the question, was Reze in love or was she pretending? The answer is yes, both. While she was carrying out her mission, she was falling in love with Denji. If we compare her to other villains, such as Landa for example, he was a bastard, very intelligent but a bastard nonetheless, or Joker, who is practically the personification of chaos. Villains are often portrayed as imposing people who provoke chaos. However, Reze was not pure evil. What she did was the only thing she knew. It was her mission. We all agree that destroying half a city and killing thousands of civilians is a bad thing, right? But then, knowing Reze's story, to what extent can we blame her? Is it her fault? Or is it the fault of the government that indoctrinated her from a young age to be a deadly tool to use in their interests? She doesn't operate out of evil, she operates for reasons of state. She is the extended hand of a system that turns its young people into tools. When she decides to go to the date, she breaks the oppression, choice appears. But the world reminds her that in this story, politics dictates romance. At the end of the day, a weapon with feelings is a weapon that learns. First value being broken, guys. It turns out that even though she has killed a lot of people, we understand that bitch. And all we want is for her to go back to her country and blow everything up there. This simple background to Reze's story gives us immense complexity in her personality and in how we understand the character. Now it doesn't seem so crazy that Denji wanted to get back together with her, even after the massacre, right? Reze is basically in the same situation as Denji. I would even say that Denji still has to live through all the oppression that Reze has felt from the state. Because Reze isn't the only one who was taken as a child to be a weapon of the state. Denji is going down the same path, and Reze knows it. In fact, I think the most important scene in the whole movie is the dialogue at the festival, just before they kiss. At that moment, Reze questions Denji's way of life, and now you'll see why I compare her to Londa, because in terms of dialogue, she manages to say so much without saying anything, which is incredible. Why do I say this is the most important scene? Because just when he's talking to Denji, there's a hidden message to subscribe to the channel. Fujimoto has thought of everything, and if you give it a like and comment something nice, I'll perform a ritual so you can find a love less complicated than Denji's. Okay, sorry. Now we can get back to why this scene is the most important one in the whole movie for me. Because while they're talking about Denji's life, Reze is also referring to her own. Which is why I think that when she suggests they run away, at that moment, if Denji hadn't hesitated, if he hadn't made the excuse that work was starting to go well for him, Reze would have run away with him. And that would probably be the end of the Chainsaw Man story.
If you quit your job, we can run away together. I'll be able to give you a happier life, I promise. And I'll protect you.
But the dialogue is so complex, not only because Reze is talking about Denji's life at the same time as she is talking about her own. When Denji makes the excuse about work, all of us watching the movie knew that he wasn't going to run away with Reze because he was in love with Makima.
Why is this such a hard decision to make?
And Reze realizes that. Denji doesn't say it explicitly, he says it through subtext. In short, subtext is the intention hidden behind what you are actually saying. For example, if you say to someone you like, "Shall we go out for dinner one of these days?"
I don't take guys, I'm a lesbian.
Your intention is not necessarily to have dinner, but the subtext, the hidden intention, so to speak, is to have a date with that person. So much so that if they say, "No, I don't feel like dinner, but if you want, we can go to the fair," you would be just as happy, because what you wanted was not dinner, but a date.
You agreed. It's a date.
Well, the subtext is so well placed in that conversation that we, and even Reze, realized that she wasn't necessarily staying for the job.
I see. It's obvious. Denji, you like somebody else, don't you?
The thing is, Reze is a character who doesn't just happen to be in the protagonist's life. He's a villain who is more or less the opposite reflection of the protagonist. Many villains do this too. I already mentioned the Joker, who would be the opposite reflection of Batman. This means that the relationship between the protagonist and the villain is not just about justice, but becomes a personal, intimate battle for both the protagonist and the villain.
Come closer, Denji. I'm going to show you the many ways we can fight, up close and personal.
And we can see that battle in Denji when he questions whether women only approach him because they want to kill him. But we also see that internal battle in Reze, of wanting to run away and have a normal life. Which is why throughout the film, Reze sees airplanes symbolizing that desire to be free. And if we look at the subtext with a magnifying glass, we can find subtext even in their body language. I've already talked about how Londa conveyed tension through dialogue, but he also does so magnificently through Waltz's performance, even though Reze is a cartoon, meaning there is no actual acting. Reze is able to convey a certain discomfort with his affectionate gestures. Let's be clear, we all probably knew that things were going too well for it to be real. The only one who didn't realize it was Denji. The arc makes it clear that her body and her affection are indoctrinated.
After all this, you actually think that I'm hiding real feelings for you? Every time I touched you or smiled at you, it was a lie, part of my performance. I even trained myself to blush.
Approach equals probing, kiss equals detonator, caress equals distraction. It's not sadism for sadism's sake, it's procedure. What's disturbing is not that she lies, but that she can tell the truth while executing. Her empathy doesn't override the protocol, it optimizes it, because understanding Denji improves efficiency. This is where modern villainy is born. Emotion does not replace the mission, it perfects it. So throughout the film, those affectionate glances, those touches he gave Denji, the silly laughter, made us feel a little tense because we suspected that Reze was deceiving him. And I say just a little tense because I don't think Reze was as intimidating as Landa, for example. who made you feel tense automatically when he appeared on screen. Reze doesn't make you feel that intense tension because, as I said before, this character partly wants you to feel tenderness towards him. Fujimoto wants to play with that duality of good and evil, so if he had written a very intimidating character, we would have celebrated his death instead of feeling sad. And partly also because Reze doesn't necessarily represent a threat that has to be stopped. Reze represents a future that will never be. That future where Denji and Reze have a normal, peaceful life, far from the manipulation of the state. Reze offers him a parallel world, studying together, fooling around in the rain, being a neighborhood kid. It's not a power-up, it's a possibility. And Denji says yes to something that is not a specific person, but a way of life. When that possibility explodes, literally and metaphorically, it's not a romance that is broken, it's a possible future that is broken. Denji learns a cruel lesson. Intimacy is unstable ground. That silent wound also recalibrates Makima's reading. If Reze is the temptation you wanted to believe in, Makima is the power you cannot deny. Between the two, Denji is caught between the dream and the state.
Like staying alive from this Makima!
Makima. Denji, I didn't know that witch put a collar on you. Then there was no point in us trying to run away together.
And that's why Reze's death had such an impact, because at the end of the day, when Makima kills Reze, what the author is telling us is that, in the end, the state has won. This has been my analysis of Reze specifically, but if you want to know my opinion of the film in general and why I think it deserves an Oscar, I've done an analysis from a cinematic perspective. Here's the video.
I'm running away now. See ya.